Welcome to Vancouver Carpenter. So those pesky pot lights can be a real problem when you can't get the trim to sit flat. And it could be one of a number of reasons. So I'm going to take you guys along with me as I play detective and see why so many of these pot lights aren't sitting flat and what the solutions are to them. Let's start with the one from the thumbnail photo. So I'm just going to pull this down and we'll see what's going on here. So hopefully it's not the actual can sitting too low. When I say the can, what I mean is this unit in here. If that's been mounted too low and you can't get the trim to sit flush, there's nothing you can do except to build it out with mud until you can actually get it to fit. So you might actually have to build it out like, 1/8 of an inch right here, all the way around the pot light. And if you do that, you've got to feather it out really far, like at least 16 inches so that you can't see this funny little molehill on the ceiling where the pot light sits. But anyways, this one, I don't think that is the case. I believe that this one is just this crusty stuff. So when the painter rolls over these, then all of the loose paper gets really hard and makes it not sit flush. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a sanding block and sand that down. First, I'm going to disconnect the light. I'm going to push this up here. And I've got my handy dandy sanding block that I showed you guys how to make. And I'm just going to sand this stuff down. Now, I suppose you could also, if you're super careful, try to cut this stuff away. But you'd have to be so careful to not go too far. Otherwise, you're going to have to mud it anyways. But actually, let's try that. Let's see what happens if I really carefully cut this. Because if your ceiling is already finished painted, maybe you don't want to sand the whole ceiling. So let's try this first. We're just cutting this stuff away so carefully. Try not to get fingerprints on the ceiling and try not to cut too far or these tiny little pot light trims won't cover. So as you can see, I'm just pushing really carefully. I'm not trying to go too far at once. The main thing is to keep most of this intact so that we don't have a big void here that we now have to fill. This one was cut out really well, so there's not going to be a problem when I cut this loose paper off. If it hadn't been cut out nicely and there was a gap, then cutting this paper off might be a problem. Let's try this again. Ta-da! Well, almost ta-da. I told you these trims were small. Now we've got an annoying gap, and I was so careful. How annoying! Should have sanded it. So now I'm taking a stiff mix of drywall mud and getting as much in there as I can around the spots where it was too far. On second thought, the sanding block would have been a better choice because it would have left it intact. Here's another one. Let's try the sanding method this time. Now it's time for the handy dandy sanding block. If these weren't such ridiculously small trims, cutting around it would have worked. Ta-da! Okay, I'll bring you guys over so you can see that. That is much better. Perfectly acceptable from the floor. Teeny gap there, but perfect from the floor. This one has another very common reason. It's hard to see, but what it is the drywall's broken. So as it got pushed up, it crushed this part out. So see right there, it's broken, you guys? So I need to carve that out so that I can fill it flush. Because right now there's like a bump right here. It's not going to be picked up on camera, but it's enough to stop the pot light trim from sitting flush. So I'm taking a sharp knife and I need to cut it out where all the paper is broken and the drywall's crushed. And that should probably do it. As you can see, it's just falling out easily. Did I get all of it? I can can still hear a hollow spot, which means it goes further. Now I've got a stiff mix of Quickset, and I'm just gonna force it in here to make sure that it's nice and full. So I'm even trying to make sure that I get it like in between the drywall and this can, because that's gonna give it a little more tooth to hold and stay in there. Get a little tape on here. I'm gonna overhang it a little bit. Use my hawk to hold it in place. That's good for now. Just like in my other video about the gap around the Potlight, we're gonna carve this out on the upstroke, and definitely do it over your full pan so all the crumbs fall into your pan. I highly recommend that. This one's gonna need to be kind of wide because it's right in front of a window. And yes, you have to go all the way around. If you don't create a nice flat surface all the way around, you're just gonna wind up in the same position, which is with a gap. And so how do you create a nice flat surface? Well, for starters, you get an even spread of mud on there. So I'm gonna do my edge here. Now I'm gonna go all the way around the middle. Okay, so it's not perfect, but let's get into what I was just about to talk about, which is getting a nice even flat surface. So now when I come back to this, I'm gonna sand this with my sanding pole, really flatten it out before the next coat. That way your Potlight is gonna sit nice and flat. It won't sit flat if you just do a scrape and a skim, guys, unless you're that good. But I know I will get my best results if I sand this before my next coat. Once it's thoroughly dry, you just want to give it a nice sand. And I'm using something that's nice and flat. So this sanding pole is firm and flat. So it's really going to flatten this whole surface down. Oh, tradesman special. Don't forget that. Not working. Hold your breath. Run away. Okay, all clear. I'm not the only one that does the hold their breath and run away method, am I? At this point, it should be looking pretty flat. So I'm just looking across this with my knife, and I can see that the Potlight's gonna be resting real flat. However, there's still a lot of inconsistencies, just, you know, porosity in the mud, and I just wanna give it a really nice smooth skim coat. So we're gonna do one more coat over the whole thing just to really flatten it out. Going a little wider than the last time. I'm still just using my 6" because it's a versatile knife that I'm familiar with. Caught that one. All right, shoulder caught that one. Feather my edge. And now I'm just taking off what I put on. Getting rid of any of the bubbles. And leaving a nice smooth finish. Because that first coat that I just sanded down left the shape that I was looking for. And now I'm just making it real flat and smooth. That's looking good, I can leave it. And those last two drops, if you're wondering, fell on my pants. Well, let's get this one sanded up and see if it sits flat, or if putting that piece of tape on did anything, or if, you know, I just don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, today I'm gonna put on the real mask. Next, I'm going to cut out anything that's spewing into the line of the Potlight box. get this connected, pop it in, and see how it looks. Normally I would actually paint everything first, but for the sake of the video, you guys got to see how it looks. Oh, the actual Potlight box isn't properly attached in this case. So that's going to make it a bit more challenging. This is really hard to do, to not scratch the mud at this stage. Well, that's not going to make life easier for anybody. There's one more reason why it might not sit flat. And there's not actually anything I can do to secure that at this point, because it's all done. Give it little taps till it vibrates into place. So this is how you install Potlights, guys. So basically, it's got these springs that like friction fitted into there, and I can't actually push up because it just pushes the box up. But if I do this enough, I can get it to vibrate into place. And now we can take a look at this. As we can see, it's now sitting totally flush. I did manage to actually get it up in there, but good luck for the next person who takes them down to paint the ceiling and then has to put them back up. Oh well, at least I made a video for you to see. Here's the other side. And so that's actually just a shadow from the light coming in from the window. And then we've got this teeny tiny thing that shouldn't even be a problem. And it sure isn't from down here. But man, those are some tiny Potlight trims. Well, that's how I fixed that one, and it worked well. So let's go over what the possible reasons could be again. So number one, it could be the painted and hardened fuzzy paper that's come down and is stopping it from pushing all the way up. Number two, it could be like the one I repaired, a blown out piece of drywall that's stopping it from sitting flush. Number three, it could be somebody has actually already tried to patch around the Potlight and they just aren't very good and they left an uneven layer of mud. So that's going to cause that. And we had a fourth reason that it could be. It could be that the Potlight can isn't installed very well and it's got movement. So when you try to push it up, you actually can't get it all the way in the box. But as you could see, with enough time and doing that, I was able to actually get that to sit flush and stay where it's supposed to be. However, if you didn't put tape over top of your repair and then you start hitting on it like that, you might find that you will crack the mud and it'll fall out. So your repair was meaningless. So yeah, adding a piece of tape actually can be necessary sometimes. Yes, you need to build it out a little bit more. Yes, it's an extra step and it makes it a bit harder, but it's better in the long term because it provides a strong result. Anyways, I hope you guys got something out of this video. I hope you're able to figure out why your Potlights aren't sitting flush. It's an annoying problem. You know what? It's like I had to do about a dozen in this place, and I can't even blame the drywallers for not doing a very good job in the first place. Like, these are just problem Potlight trims. They're just so small, although I must say they do look good. They're nice and simple. Anyways, I'm blabbing, we've gone on too long, and thanks for watching Vancouver Carpenter. I hope you got something out of this useful video thing. Just stop watching, guys. Go fix your Potlights. Come on, get out of here.